My Dead Friend Zoe is a dramedy where we follow Merritt, who's a US Army veteran. She's haunted by the apparition of her deceased friend Zoe, who she fought alongside in Afghanistan. Her grief haunts her while she navigates life's obstacles, including court-ordered group therapy sessions that she dreads and caring for her grandfather with Alzheimer's disease. The big subject of this movie is PTSD. It highlights the deeply personal and complex struggles faced by those who have experienced trauma, including veterans. It goes beyond veteran PTSD in some ways, but being focused on a veteran experiencing loss, much of the narrative covers specifically veteran PTSD. The film is sort of a tribute to veterans. It shows the strength and vulnerability that can come with serving and how trauma doesn't always show in visible ways. It's sort of a love letter to those who have served and might still be carrying pain. It has occasional flashbacks to when Zoe and Merritt served together. These kind of act as a slow burn for the movie because the biggest point of anticipation is seeing how exactly Zoe passed away. I'm not gonna lie, despite the seeds being planted for that reveal, I actually didn't see the way that it happened coming. There were some good red herrings that I was fixated on instead. The rest of the movie is about Merritt dealing with the repressed trauma of losing Zoe, all while taking care of her grandfather. Merritt is deeply impacted by her grief with Zoe's presence haunting her. Sort of literally. It's a little bit unclear for much of the movie whether or not she's actually being haunted by Zoe's ghost or if this is just a manifestation of her own grief. Like, Zoe is seen picking up and moving objects around, but whether or not they're actually being moved is a little bit ambiguous. So that could have been handled more purposefully, but nevertheless, her visions of Zoe show how she is sort of stuck in the past. It's ironic because there's a dialogue around Merritt's life after serving. She's very much focused on the future, but her inability to process what has happened to her has left her dwelling on the past. She's impacted by her painful memories, but she struggles digging them up and sharing them with others, which is one of the movie's core conflicts, her struggles in participating in group therapy. There's irony there as well. Merritt doesn't want to share those memories, and at the same time, she's taking care of her grandfather Dale, played by Ed Harris, who can't retain memories because of his condition. Maybe not the right word, but I think there's a loose statement about privilege there. It's a privilege to have these beautiful memories that we share with people, even if they go hand in hand with the painful ones. But Merritt takes that for granted, and that's made much clearer when her struggles are adjacent to Dale's life being increasingly complicated by the struggles of dealing with Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot of heavy subject matter, but the movie is pretty silly. It is a comedy, though it took a while for me to actually start laughing at it. It was probably around the halfway point where I actually had the thought, you know, this movie isn't really that funny. And then right after completing that thought, the movie actually started getting a lot funnier. Zoe's occasional quirky post-mortem behavior and Merritt's interactions with this character Alex made for some pretty fun moments. It can be kind of cringy at times, but I wouldn't say it's like bad cringy. It's just, you know, characters are sometimes in situations that are very awkward, so just be prepared for some secondhand embarrassment. One of the jokes I was expecting to see more was Merritt publicly interacting with Zoe when she's the only one who can see her, because obviously to those around her, she doesn't look well for comedic value. They only pull that gag a couple of times. There's actually a lot of dialogue exchanged between the two of them that's actually very serious and sometimes dark. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I just think that it's worth mentioning that this movie has very serious themes, so definitely don't go in expecting just an outrageous comedy. The movie is humorous, but not hilarious. It's just silly enough that the serious parts of the movie are not being undermined by jarringly outrageous jokes. So it leaves us with the space to really feel for those serious parts. I was not totally in love with all of the dialogue in this movie. It can sometimes be mildly stilted. It's by no means Madam Web level bad, but it just sometimes sounds very written. For example, the recurring subject of the movie is PTSD, and that was fleshed out very well. There's this part later in the movie where a character gently expresses having mild PTSD about a past experience. Parts like this just felt a little bit too on the nose. The movie already established its premise very clearly, but then we would occasionally just get beaten in the head by dialogue like this. Nevertheless, I thought the movie was solid. It has a lot of heart, it's very emotional, but it sometimes manages to weave comic relief in at just the right times. The movie deals with heavy themes like grief and PTSD and some other adjacent topics, so I want to put a trigger warning on it for those of you who might be sensitive to those topics. Sorry if that sounds a little bit cryptic or non-descriptive. I'm just trying to dance around spoilers while still trying to drive drive the point home that this movie might be hard to watch for some of you. Like, honestly, I actually had a hard time with it. But at the very least, I think one of the big takeaways that most people will get from this movie is just a reminder to cherish the people that you have today. You know, it's the Crow's message. Think about what you have to lose. I thought the movie was pretty decent overall. If you're looking to watch something that's mostly pretty poignant, but still has a little bit of fun sprinkled in there, this could be a good watch. But if you have been struggling with any sort of recent loss, I might suggest waiting on this one. Like, honestly, this one hit me really hard, so maybe save it for when you're in a better headspace. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help this channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Mickey 17.